Louisiana Senator Bill Cassidy will speak at an education summit tonight in Washington, D.C. Devontae Martin is following this for us tonight. What's he going to talk about, Devontae?
Well, Jennifer, Senator Cassidy will speak at the Stop for Education Summit, where he is expected to talk about how to work with new Congress and leadership. Senator Bill Cassidy will address education leaders Thursday night at an education summit in Washington, D.C. As the current ranking member of the U.S. Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, he is expected to speak to leaders and educators on how to work with new Congress leaders. The summit will also focus on pivotal discussions regarding the future of education policy. Education consultant Jamie Mays says events like this give the opportunity for issues to be discussed.
I always like hearing summits being held around education, because the more we talk, the more we can learn, understand what's going on, and even what we need to be working toward as an educational community.
Mays believes there is a need for more teacher benefits across the country. She says local officials will be critical in getting those benefits.
Having our local lawmakers to also be well connected with our citizens and actually engaging in more conversations, and even working with local citizens to write out those things that they need to take to those bigger tables.
Starting in January, Republicans will be the majority in the Senate. Senator Cassidy could be the next chair of the Health Committee.